Hello, friends. Good morning, and welcome to our home. It feels incredible to say that again. It has been a little while since I have sat down behind the mic like this, and honestly, it feels so beautiful to be back here and to be talking with you again. But before we go any further, I would like to take a moment to reintroduce myself, especially for those of you who are new here and just now finding this podcast. My name is Ava. I am a practicing witch, a tarot reader, and a digital content creator who has decided very intentionally and very recently to finally shed an old layer of skin and step forward with a clearer sense of purpose. And because of that, this podcast is going through a bit of a rebrand. What was once Elaborations with SchellingtonGrin is now Elaborations with E. Same host, same podcast, same platforms and distributing partners, just newer, clearer energy. Now, if you have been here before, I truly want to welcome you back with so much gratitude and the warmest possible open arms energy ever, because it means so much to me that you are still here with me. You have been here since the beginning, and you are part of this ever-evolving family that I have continued to create with everything that I have done under the previously titled SchellingtonGrin brand that is also going through the same redevelopment as this podcast. And if this is your first time finding this space, welcome. I am really glad that you are here, and I want you to make yourself at home as much as possible. Now, the reason for this shift isn't because I'm trying to erase who I was before. Not at all. I still love many of the things that really made me SchellingtonGrin and really made the brand. I still love gothic things, very much so. I still love exploring the shadowy parts of life and talking about things like shadow work, and especially embracing that when it comes to being a Scorpio sextile in my astrological natal chart, which we will go into a deep dive on that in another episode later this year. And I still love talking about witchcraft, spirituality, and the deeper layers of the human experience, because I think that there is so much wisdom hidden in the places that people are often afraid to look. The shadow work, the healing, the messier parts of becoming whole, the messier parts of stepping out from under what was keeping you stuck. And that part of me is absolutely not going anywhere. In fact, it might even become more amplified as I continue to integrate it with other facets of myself. But something I realized over the last year or so, or really over the last few months, going into the end of last year and coming into the beginning of this new year, and deciding to start this podcast back up in March instead of forcing myself to restart it during the new year when it made, quote, logical sense, end quote, to a specified societal timeline of starting new things and new projects in January when we're still in the thick of winter. Something that I realized is that my aesthetic and the energy that I was putting out before was a little bit exclusive, actually. It was intense and intimidating, and not always in the best, most self-honoring ways. It was not really aligning with the energy that I wanted to be in and the types of interactions I wanted to attract to me, and the types of clientele and everything like that I really wanted to align myself with. And sometimes it felt so dark and so gothic that it wasn't attracting the kinds of people that I wanted to have around me. It was kind of that exclusive, you can only be part of this if you a goth kid kind of energy. And it was sexy in some points, but it was really intense and terrifying in others. But instead of abandoning those parts of myself outright and saying, you know, for lack of a better way of putting this, because I swear on this podcast and you know me by now, those of you who have been here, and if you're new here, buckle in because you're going to hear some F-bombs. But I'm not trying to say, you know, fuck being into vampires, fuck being into the dark stuff, fuck it, fuck it, fuck it. I'm not saying any of that. Take a shot for every time I say fuck. I'm kidding. Don't. You know, it might be a few too many shots. But I digress. Instead of abandoning those parts of myself completely, I asked myself, how do I integrate them? How do I keep this depth that I really love within myself while also allowing more softness? How do I explore the shadows while making space for warmth and invitation and receptivity? And that's really what this rebrand is about. Integration. So you might see the logo shifting a little bit, the colors might evolve, the atmosphere of the brand might soften. I've got the current logo that I really enjoy, and I might keep something along those lines, but it might continue to evolve as I continue to grow as a creator. And this isn't because I'm forcing myself to become someone else or I am becoming something that is inauthentic to me, but it is because I am becoming more of who I actually am and wish to be. That person, that future version of myself that I see 6 months, a year from now, that is really stepping into her power. And interestingly enough, this shift within myself and my perspective of myself and the transition with my brand has made me start to look at something that I've studied on and off for years with a set of fresh eyes. And that something is the law of attraction. Now, if you've been around the spiritual space for a while, you've most likely heard about it before. Maybe through books, podcasts, documentaries like The Secret, and so many other things. You may have even heard about it on TikTok and Instagram and YouTube now. But the way that I understand it now, at almost 32 years old, feels very different from how I understood it when I first encountered it in my early 20s. Back then, it felt like I was trying to understand it mentally, logically, and I was hearing things like, think positive thoughts and positive things will happen. And it sounded very woo-woo to me, and honestly, I like the woo-woo, but it sounded like something that I wanted to understand on paper before I could even try to apply it. And I was circling it in my brain a lot because I still didn't get it. I didn't get it on a logical perspective. I didn't get it on an emotional perspective. I didn't get it in a perspective of lived experience yet because I hadn't really gotten there yet. There was something in me that did not get there yet, especially in my early 20s when I wasn't fully aware of things yet. And I had lived some experiences, but hadn't had the ones that I have had now that have shaped me into my early 30s, you know, but I realized now, recently, that understanding the law of attraction doesn't just happen with the brain, but it also happens with the heart. And it needs that brain and heart coherence for you to actually be able to fully understand it, fully integrate it, and then apply it. And one of the things that really helped me understand it was revisiting the book, The Secret. I have it on audiobook format. And I listened to a specific story again that was featured in it. I would love to share that with you. In the book, Rhonda Byrne brought on Jack Canfield, who spoke about his experience with manifesting money and changing his life. And many people may know him as the author of Chicken Soup for the Soul and similar books in that chicken soup lineup. And he tells this story from early in his career, before the books became wildly successful. At the time, he was making something like $8,000 a year, which even back then wasn't a lot of money. And one day, he decided he wanted to set a goal for himself. He said, I want to make $100,000 in a year. Now, the tricky thing is that he didn't know how it was going to happen. He didn't have the strategy yet, but he had the goal, and that was enough. So what did he do? He held on to that number, he visualized it, he even wrote himself out a check and put it in a spot where he could see it every day. And he zoned in on that. $100,000. For about the first 30 days of holding on to this goal, nothing happened. He had no big ideas, no sudden breakthroughs, but then one day he was going about mundane tasks in his life and an idea popped into his mind. He realized that if he sold his book for 25 cents a copy and sold around 400,000 copies, he could reach that $100,000 goal. Now again, he had that idea pop into his mind, but he still didn't know how he was going to achieve that. How was he going to sell that many copies? How was he going to, market that or anything like that? But he held on to the idea anyway. Now stay with me, because sometime later he went to the grocery store, and you know how all grocery stores always have newspaper stands and magazines near the front. Normally he would just walk past them. They were background noise, they didn't really matter. But that day, something caught his attention. One of the papers that was featured in his grocery store at the time was the National Enquirer. And suddenly he had the thought, what if I could get my book mentioned in something like that? Now again, you're going to keep hearing me say this. He had no idea how it would even happen. He had no control or idea over the how and the when or the why. But he had the thought, he had the goal, he had the vision, he had his what. So he kind of did what we now call in the spiritual sphere as the set it and forget it method. He held the idea lightly and moved on with his life. He put it out into the universe, set it down, and forgot about it and allowed a natural chain of events to just happen for him. And when I say that he allowed the natural chain of events to happen, people are probably going to say, well, what do you mean? If he had no control over it, he didn't know how it was going to happen, how did he allow the natural chain of events? Because he simply said, this is what's going to happen for me, this is what I want, this is what I'm attracting, and I'm going to keep that goal in mind, keep that vision, without browbeating myself if it doesn't happen exactly the way that I want it to. But not long after, he put that out into the universe. He put the idea of the $100,000, then he put the idea of selling his book at 25 cents a piece for 400,000 copies. Then he put out the idea of maybe getting it mentioned in the National Enquirer. He had these little steps going already. And not long after that, he gave a talk somewhere. And after the talk, a woman in the crowd came up to him and said, that was incredible. I would love to interview you. So he said, absolutely, that would be great. Who do you work for? And she said, well, I'm a freelance journalist, but I sell most of my work to the National Enquirer to get published. And he said that in that moment, when he was recounting this story, he said that he could practically hear the Twilight Zone theme song playing in his head, the little do 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 do, because the exact opportunity that he had casually imagined had suddenly appeared right in front of him, and he had the opportunity to take it. So she gave him her card, and he got in touch with her and they did the interview and they talked about his work. They talked about the book. And within the next year, he didn't quite hit his $100,000 goal, but he made about $92,000. Now, some people might look at that and say, well, he missed the goal completely. No, he didn't. He didn't look at it that way at all. He looked at it and thought, I made $92,000 this year because I believed in an idea and followed it. $92,000 is only $8,000 away from that goal of $100,000, right? So even with not making the full $100,000, he didn't say, oh, I didn't make $100,000, the law of attraction doesn't work. He said, the law of attraction works. I got close to my goal. I am still proud, I am still happy, and I'm still going to continue. And then his wife said something really interesting to him. She said, well, if the law of attraction can get you to $92,000 or $100,000, I wonder if it could help you reach your first million. So they both decided to test it. And he held on to that vision of making $1 million off of his book. And the next goal became that $1 million. They worked with his publisher. They expanded the reach of the book. They bumped up the price, whatever they did. And eventually the moment came where the publisher handed him that check of $1 million and said, this is the first $1 million check I have ever written. Jack, congratulations. You are my first $1 million success. And it was a celebration for the both of them, for him and his publisher, because that was the first time it had happened. And Jack really stuck with it. And now, years later, we still have books like Chicken Soup for the Soul, circulating around out there, but we have Chicken Soup for the Girl Soul, Chicken Soup for et cetera, et cetera. We have different branches of Chicken Soup for the Soul now because Jack Canfield believed in himself, believed in the goal, believed in the vision, believed in the idea, and didn't waver on it. Even if he didn't know how, when, or why it was going to happen, he just knew. That he knew what he wanted, he knew what he was going to attract, and he set it and forget it. And he went about his life, and it happened. And the thing that really sticks with me about that story is not just the money. It's the process. The process of the law of attraction. Because he didn't obsess about it. He didn't put this goal up on a pedestal. He didn't put anything up on a pedestal and say, it has to happen this way. It has to be this. Please, 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 God, let it happen. And I'm doing a funny voice, but hear me out. He didn't put it on a pedestal. He didn't obsess over the goal and stop living his life. He continued with his life. And a natural chain of events just happened to put him in alignment with those opportunities to make that goal a reality. And then from there, he kept going. He didn't panic about the how. He didn't obsess. He had the goal, and he followed the ideas that came to him. And he allowed the opportunities to meet him halfway. Which brings me back to something that I realized recently. When looking at the law of attraction and thinking about the law of attraction, take a look at that word attraction. The last 6 letters spell out the word action. And the law of attraction really cannot function in an environment of inaction. So, going back to this Jack Canfield example, he didn't take absolutely any action at all. That kind of sounded confusing. Let me rephrase. It's not that he went about his life taking no action towards the goal. He went about his life taking action, but he didn't take action from a place of force. He didn't take action from a place of hustle. But he put himself in positions to allow those opportunities to come to him. Whether it was going to the grocery store and taking notice of the National Enquirer, whether it was doing that talk and then taking the contact information of that reporter and doing the interview. whether it was going and promoting his book and doing book tours and all of these different things to promote the book, and, you know, talking about it in the National Enquirer, and then it sells enough to make him $92,000 in a year. You know, like, it didn't matter that he didn't do it by force. He still took action. He still did these talks. He still went out. He still lived his life. You do not have to hustle yourself into exhaustion to attract good things to you. But you do have to move. Even the smallest actions count. And it can be something as easy as taking a day off to clean your home and organizing your, you know, home and your room and your everything and taking care of your energy. Or it could be something as big as like following that $1 million idea that pops into your head. All of those things create movement. And movement and momentum is what gives the universe something to work with, to align you with those opportunities to attract what you want. To align you with those opportunities to attract who you genuinely are underneath the surface. So wherever you are right now, whatever stage of life you're in, just remember this. Every aligned action matters. Not because it is dramatic, not because anyone else sees it, not because you forced anything, but because it is intentional. And intention changes everything. That is all I have for you for this first episode back. But if you would love to stay connected with me, the best place to do that right now is Instagram. You can find me at elaborations.with.e over on there. And before you do follow, I do want to let you know that I'm still moving through some updates right now. Nothing is fully being deleted. I'm just slowly refreshing things. So it might feel a little quiet right now. But slow doesn't mean that I've stopped. Everything is evolving. And if you enjoyed this episode and you'd love to hear more conversations like this, you can subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Deezer, anywhere you get your audio podcasts, or you can even subscribe on YouTube and listen over on there, whichever you would prefer. And if this episode resonated with you, feel free to share it with a friend or post it to your Instagram stories and tag me in it, because I genuinely love hearing what landed for people and expanding on the conversation. Thank you for being here today. This is Elaborations with E, and I will see you again in the next episode. Have a great day. Bye.